Just gonna go and go straight in.
Excuse me, can you see us?
Can you mute them, TJ? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Munson Steed, and this is my co-host Terry Shropshire for the Rolling Out News Report. This evening, we have the same set of circumstances that we had yesterday. There is more to tell. We have more community leaders and thought leaders coming to tell this. Terry, what do you find the community saying, and what is the state of our community at this fragile moment?
I think that there's a certain sense of the community has gotten emboldened because of the receipts that they have in regards to the evidence of what they've been talking about for many years, and the country is responding to that. So they feel like they're on the precipice of a paradigm shift, a change, a new direction and a new way of doing things in interaction with the police. So I believe that is where we are right now, coupled with angst, anxiousness, and a little bit of fear about the unknown. So I believe that we're on the precipice of something major upon us.
Yeah, I think you're right, Terry. The very outset of this movement has surprised, but it's been a window dressing that has been placed on every murder, every death, every non-persecuted police person, every death that was called something other than a death. We really are excited about our guests this evening that are coming on Rolling Out News Report. We've got Congressman Johnson, we've got Attorney Davis. So we want everybody to begin to let your friends know out there that there's a real conversation here at Rolling Out News Report going forward. Terry, what is the most shocking thing that you've seen happen in the streets thus far during this entire protest?
The most shocking is, I don't know if I would call it shocking. I would just call it something that, back to my activist days, trying to get people to realize the way things were and seeing it play out as if the light has gone on, like they're having a collective epiphany and awareness of the things that are going on, not just Black people, but white people as well. I hearken back to Bill Smith said, racism, there's not more racism, it's just being filmed. Now we got receipts. It can't be denied. And so there's a certain awareness. And then the international, collective international support for our cause. This thing has, traveled across, it's intercontinental now. It's not just domestically in the United States. It's like people around the world are seeing what is going on, and they have, taken up the cause for us, because there's major march of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in different cities around the world that have seen this and are demanding change in the United States. So I guess that was the surprise, that it went beyond the borders of the continental United States.
Well, as it related to shock, I think the community was shocked that so many young people from all races had decided that it was their movement too. And that the shock and the fact that they united all across this country, but that young people really were sharing out loud, even to their parents, that they were angry.
Yes, it seems like a lot of people are very angry and, just disgusted. Like I said, there's people who are quote unquote conservative or have different political leanings than us. And they're saying that this is no longer this is not acceptable. And I think that what is probably shocking is that the way it came about was the fact that we have been screaming about this for decades, but now that modern technology, which we did not create, is now working against the people who created it. And in that it is revealing the underbelly of society. So now they can pull up the rug and see all the dirt and the grime and the nastiness and just all the grotesque aspects underneath that carpet, and they can't deny it. Now it's time to clean it up.
Yeah, there definitely were things that were swept under the rug or covered up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Rolling Out News Report, we are very proud of our congressional leader, Congressman Hank Johnson, who has joined us this evening, who sits on the Judiciary Committee. We also are proud to say that we are joined by the wonderful attorney. We also have our dear brother who is there, Lee Reed, who gives us hope, Lee, that we can begin to have citizen review in a real way in Minneapolis and around the world. But I'd like, and we want to welcome Amani Barnes, who is a movement in her own right. She and her son are the hope and the future of our community. Attorney Davis, we're going to go to Congressman Hank Johnson, and then if you would follow up right after him, because I have one question for you, Congressman. I want to know, do we anticipate new laws once we have a new person in the White House?
Definitely, and that's a prerequisite to getting some new laws. We've got to have somebody who's going to sign those laws, but we also have to have a change in the Senate, in the United States Senate, because change is about to come as far as police accountability and police, in other words, there is a climate where they feel like they can do anything, a climate of impunity. That's demonstrated just over the last half hour when the chief of Atlanta Police Department is saying that Paul Howard moved too quickly to levy charges against the 6 officers who assaulted that young man and that young woman in their car on Saturday night on the streets of Atlanta, again on video, tasered them, somebody with a trigger happy taser. They demolished the car, breaking the windows, slicing the tires. I mean, it caused property damage for no reason. They tasered for no reason. And there's no reason why Paul Howard needed to delay in filing charges against these officers. But now we hear that he's being chastised by the chief of police in Atlanta, and that other police agencies who were on the street assisting the Atlanta Police Department have now withdrawn from the city. So this is an example of how that blue line can come together to protect itself. And then they have so much influence over the policymakers. And so now is a time for there to be police accountability legislation passed in Congress, has a good chance of passing in the House of Representatives. I'm the proud sponsor of the Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act, which I filed right after Michael Brown was killed up in Ferguson, Missouri. 2013, that legislation has been pending so that we can stop that pipeline of military equipment from the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan straight to the streets of these local police departments that don't need the equipment, don't know how to use it, and the law requires them to put it into use within a year of the time they received it.
Well, so I tell you, Congressman, I felt like, when you're a Morehouse man and you see another young man, Attorney Davis, when you saw the car surrounded and you could see that everyone, it didn't look like a neighborhood community policing going on. What was going through your mind when you thought about the fact that they needed an attorney right then at that moment?
It was just overwhelming for me because Messiah and Tanaya are my children's age. I have a 20 and 22-year-old that are at Howard. And, if Morehouse was in Savannah, they would have gone to Morehouse. They just wanted to get out of Atlanta. So for me, this is very, very personal because I see my children in them. And I felt like when you saw these officers just go to town on their car and then go to town on them and attack them. And we have to call it what it is. That is a terroristic attack. The things that they're yelling at them afterwards, some of it was caught on tape, some of it wasn't, just horrific. And so I knew that, one, those officers have to be fired. They have to be arrested. They need to be prosecuted. And the damage that's done to these young people, it has to be accounted for. We have to hold them accountable. So it's been an honor to represent Messiah. Chris Stewart represents Tanaya. We're having an incredible chance to work together, our two firms, and Chris's work he's in Minnesota right now working on the George Floyd case. So this is just the work that I think we're all called to do in this moment.
I want to ask Tanaya and Messiah, and thank you for coming on Rolling Out News Report, but I would like to get your hope, and I am so sorry that this happened to you. I mean, I, as a Morehouse man and just a brother and just an adult Black man, when we can't protect our children, it makes us feel so bad. I mean, when you can't protect our children, man, it makes us our hearts are moved because we can't protect our children, and then the people we think are protecting our children aren't protecting our children. So I did want to apologize because we knew that children come to Atlanta for that, and that's not the place of Martin Luther King. That is not the place of any of the Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, Morris Brown. That is not their legacy, and that is not their hope for you. So both, thank you. But at this moment, how do you feel?
At this moment, I feel like we're just like working our hardest to get through it. Like a lot happened, and it all happened so fast. So I think we're most focused on just getting through this.
Honestly, it's still kind of hard to process everything that's occurred. Of course, we know what happened. We understand, the severity of what happened, but we still are, questioning why this would happen.
It feels unreal. It
feels like it was just, premeditated almost. Like they had that angst just to, today we're gonna terrorize, any type of retaliation or any type of, anything against us, anything that seems to be against the police. They just had the predetermined notion that they were gonna raise havoc.
And I don't want you to say a whole lot, but it sounds like at least 100 years worth of trauma. Because when I saw that, and then, I see that when you say can't get rid of it, you already have that syndrome. And then, Brother Lee, now we got to have a community review. And you see these babies, and not that y'all aren't adults. I don't want you to hear me saying that. When you see these babies in adult life that haven't even graduated, they are babies in adult life. We still in their ear every day, trying to repeat what we want them to hear when we no longer can say it. And now they need you. What do our citizens need to know about citizen review boards, and why is it so important right now that charges move faster and swifter?
Yeah. Thank you. Being a Morehouse man myself, seeing that video and hearing and seeing what you all went through, it does break your heart. And being that involved in this type of work for so long and seeing it happen repeatedly, it's frustrating. And what I want citizens to know is that when you have something happen to you like that, or something happened to you even less than that with a police officer, you have to file. You have to bring notice to it. You have to contact an attorney, contact the Civilian Review Board, which does this type of work every day. What happens is, for us in the community, we get papered with everything. Any type of infraction, any type of citation violation, you get papered for it. We have to make sure that we are creating official documents against these officers so that we can have those types of investigations to hold them accountable. And then once you file the investigation, the complaint, you follow through with it, determine what's happening with it, demand and expect an answer from my agency and from the police department. And if you don't get that, put the pressure on your elected officials, because at the end of the day, it boils down to who's making the appointments, who's being put in office that's going to hold these officers and the chiefs responsible.
You know, Attorney Davis, and I'll go the same question to you, Congressman, but Attorney Davis, the officers and the police can't lose. The only people that lose are the citizens after they've injured these babies for life. Mm-hmm. We can't judge the trauma. We can't erase it. Our minds aren't made that way. But the police don't lose. They unless they go to jail, they don't lose. Right. So what can we say and why? And I really appreciate the attorneys in our community. I remember there was a time there wouldn't be Black attorneys, and we need more Black attorneys. And we need more people to use Black attorneys in these moments where I think that call, we're there, we are qualified, and we know the ins and outs now. So when I see people not using Black attorneys, I got a problem. But what do we need to understand, and what do people who have these type complaints need to understand why they need to call you?
So these situations, and I agree 100% with Lee, everything has to be documented. We can't let certain things slide because we have to establish the record of these officers. We have to establish that they have been bad actors for a period of time, so that when we do open records requests and we pull their personnel file, we can see complaints have been made. But if you just go about your business after being disrespected or insulted, what it does is it allows the officer to think that, hey, I can do this in this community, or I can do this to this kind of person. Here's something that people don't know about this case. We found out today that one of the officers that was a part of the 6 that assaulted them was also one of the officers that was on a task force 4 years ago that shot Jamarian Robinson 40 times, 76 bullet wounds. So it happened at East Point. So it didn't happen in Atlanta, but this APD officer was a part of that task force. So he was never disciplined. He was never even taken off the street. And so when now he sees these young people and he's ticked off because they are filming some other officers take down one of their Morehouse brothers, he's a part of this gang. And I'm calling it what it is. They moved like a gang. I'm from Chicago, so I've seen gang movement. That looked like a gang to me, not anyone, not law enforcement, and they moved in that way. So it's important that we're communicating that we have rights. And I'll say this and move on. I think it's really critical that people understand that there has to be a fundamental change in police culture. And what you saw when Paul Howard broke ranks, let's just be 100. When he moved so quickly, he broke ranks. This is out of the ordinary. And so now you see the system snapping back and saying, whoa, you moved too fast. And what we need to do is the young people need to stay in the street until what Paul Howard did becomes the norm. And then there is police chief. If you want to go at Paul Howard, then you need to go. Same with the police union. If you feel like you want to back officers who terrorize the best among us, I mean, it doesn't matter who they are, but these are good kids. And so it just really hurts. You know, it's not like they were doing anything wrong. They were living and driving while being Black. And so we have to look at that thing from a different perspective.
Yeah, well,
I want to follow.
What I saw.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I saw on that tape was lawless behavior. And the thing is, police officers are not subject to the same laws that they are charged with enforcing. The climate has been a lack of accountability for police officers. They've been able to do whatever they wanted to do with impunity. That's why the public is so upset. That's why Black people are so upset now, because when the George Floyd case happened, it was the spark that set off a powder keg that had been accumulating for ever since we have been in this country and ever since we have been free. There's been lawless behavior by police officers. And before modern times, it was the Ku Klux Klan, but they were in fact the law enforcement officers and the judges and the mayors parading in behind a sheep. And so we still have that same mentality among our law enforcement people today. And it's not just white folks that are abusing us, as we see in you all's case. It's Black officers showing out as, I forget what rapper said, showing out for the white folks, NWA, showing out for the white officer. I don't know what the mentality, but everybody was together. And so they all should be prosecuted. I'm happy that Paul Howard, by the way, Attorney Davis is trying to indict the officers who were involved in that police shooting out there in East Point. He's been working on that for the last few years, but he has been stymied by local and state authorities. And he's trying to break that logjam so that he can bring charges against those officers. A very egregious case. But I'm not surprised that some of the same officers, or one of the same officers, was among this trigger-happy group with tasers. I'm just glad that they didn't pull their weapons, their real weapons out and start shooting. That shows the kind of mentality that is there. And so that's why I have introduced, other than the Stop Militarization of Law Enforcement Act, also the Cooling Off Period Elimination Act, the Grand Jury Reform Act. No reason why the Atlanta Police Department should be investigating its own officers. I mean, we need an independent agency investigating that situation, and also an independent prosecutor. And in this case, Paul Howard is doing what he should do. But normally, prosecutors working so closely with the police department, the victim doesn't have a chance in that kind of a situation. So Grand Jury Reform Act, and also the Police Accountability Act, which would give the federal government the authority to charge police officers with murder when they commit a homicide in the line of duty, and the state or the local governments refuse, as they most of the time do, to indict those officers and hold them accountable. So now is a great time for Congress to step up, pass some legislation. We do need to get it through the Senate. So we have to get out here and vote. We got a chance in Georgia to elect 2 Democratic senators, and all we need is 3 to overturn the Senate majority of Republicans in November. So Georgia can weigh in real heavy, and I want all of our young people to be out there voting. And also we need to elect a new president.
For sure.
He shouldn't have been elected.
No, I wanted to, Congressman Johnson, just very quickly, I wanted you to juxtapose these 2 situations where you saw here in Atlanta, where people acted so decisively and immediately under Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and District Attorney Paul Howard, as what compared to what happened in Brunswick, Georgia, and also in Minneapolis, where people thought it took so long to bring charges to the other officers. Just, that situation in terms of how having, Black people, African Americans in these types of positions help to bring about this type of accountability in this situation. And that's why it's so important to vote, as you have just mentioned.
Well, before you answer that, but I want to make sure that we remember the sister in Louisville. Like I don't want to leave out a sister who was dreaming and couldn't live her dreams.
Yeah, Breonna Taylor is
charged.
Yeah, it's not just men and Black boys who are being killed, but it's Black girls and Black women, same way as we have with our guest today. And I want to apologize to you. We are the people of power and privilege that created the rules that you all have to live under. and unfortunately is playing out in a bad way. And so I want to apologize to you all on behalf of our generation, and I want to challenge you to take the mantle and move it forward in a just and righteous way, never forgetting the idealism that you have right now. As you get older, that starts to go away and you start to get more conservative. And I just want you to not let that happen to you. Let this moment that you have experienced be a positive one as opposed to a negative one. And I want to thank you, Brother Steve, for bringing us all together. You know, on the Arbery case down there, that was the case of an ex-law enforcement officer being protected behind that thin blue line again. They protect each other.
Exactly.
Whether or not you are employed or you're retired or whatever. And the DA was going to ensure that that cover-up was ironclad and sealed, and it would never see the light of day. And it just so happened that, again, a video was leaked to the press, and the people saw it 2 months and 3 weeks later. And when that tape came out, it showed a modern day lynching. It used to be where private citizens, thinking that some crime has occurred, go out and get a rope and find the first Negro that they can find. And like Miss Cooper up in New York City, accusing Mr. Cooper, the black guy out bird watching, with being an African-American who's threatening me. Oh, she got on the phone and played that white woman role with precision. And the police came. Just so happened she had gone and the black guy had gone too. But if he had been there and she had been there, what do you think would have happened? What are the chances that he would have been able to walk out of that situation? You know, I mean, and so that's the world that we must change. That's the reality that people see today. And that's why Black people and white people are out here walking these streets, letting folks know that this is not the way that it's going to be in the future.
Well, we've been joined by Dr. Kenyatta Stevens, because I don't want us to lose sight that it is a pandemic. We've already recognized in Dr. Stevens the mood of the country. What do we have at risk, given that we've got both the violence against our young children by the police, and we've got a pandemic affecting our community? What's the forecast? What is the Black community, and what should the Black community be concerned with?
Oh, wow. Yes, Munson. It's just a lot going on right now. And so we were already facing socioeconomic disparities and health inequities going into this pandemic. And then when you throw in the protests and just the lack of social distancing and wearing masks, so now you have a twofold, like, compounded basic spike in COVID-19. So I think this week we'll start to see a rise, and we've actually started seeing a rise in cases, but this is actually from states opening up. So let's not forget about that, the early opening of states. And so we're seeing almost 40,000 additional cases just this week alone in the US. And then compounded with the protests and just everyone just being out and kind of putting the pandemic on the back burner. So in about 2 weeks, you're going to have another spike of cases, and that's actually from the protesters, and that's going to be a national spike as well.
Takes a lot of courage to do what you two have done, and I want to appreciate Attorney Davis, but I would like for each of you to give a message to the young people that see you as heroes of their generation. You've lived through something that some didn't get to the second place. They put people in police vans and they never got to the second place. But there are other young people like you on the front line. What would you, and I'd like for you each to take a turn, just speak to the next generation on what they need to continue to do to make this movement real for you and future generations to come to both Morehouse, Spelman, Howard, and other HBCUs. What would you tell and just your message to other young people?
Keep fighting for what you believe in. Don't ever give up on what you know is right, especially when it's your God-given right to, express how you feel. And, if you see injustice, having the grit to keep going and to get all, justice served by all costs. I think that's kind of what the message is here, especially when, life isn't promised, as we can see, this could have been a fatal tragedy. And the fact that, we're here is a blessing, but I think the message is really just to keep going and stand up for what you believe in.
I would also agree with that. I just want everyone to know, don't let this discourage you. Don't let this, bring you down. Let this inspire you, to keep going and keep trying harder, because this shouldn't be happening. And so much worse happens. You know what I mean? And it all has to stop. So my message is keep protesting, keep fighting, fight hard, change will come.
Well, I want to thank you both. Attorney Davis, for those who are on the streets, many may not have an attorney. Many may not have parents. How can they best document their experience with the police and, get in contact with you and your organization? Because we have to have a community that has representation.
Yeah, there are a number of organizations that have come together in terms of just representing protesters when they're arrested. And so I encourage people. Tiffany Williams Roberts is doing that work, one of my Georgia State law school friends and comrades in this work. And she's doing it through Southern Center for Human Rights. Then there is also the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. Lawrence Zimmerman is involved. He's the president. They're also doing that work. So there are lawyers out there that are doing the work around representing protesters. If your rights are violated, you need to consult with one of us. I'm at the Davis Bozeman law firm, but I encourage you to consult with anyone. If you don't like my bow tie, it's okay. Go with Chris Stewart. Go with any of these lawyers who you've seen working in the interest of our people, who you can come up and touch. Don't just go with someone that you see on a billboard or a commercial that will never come into your community other than as a figment and an advertisement. You'll see us. You'll see us at marches. You'll see us organizing. You'll see us at the grocery store, in community, at rolling out events once we can get back together physically. So go with folks. Yeah, go with folks that you can connect with, because we are held accountable by our community, and other folks who just set up shop, get what they get and run back into their communities. There's no level of accountability. And I agree with these young people. And I just want to undergird the importance of what our young people are doing in the street right now. They are risking their lives during this pandemic to be out there. But there is no question in my mind that what we saw in Minnesota today as a result of the upgrade of the charges and the additional charges against the other 3 officers, what we saw here in Georgia as a result of the charging of 6 officers, is a direct result of our young people being in the street. Doesn't happen with politics. It's the power of the people who have forced the hand. It's about political will, and the people change the political will. And that's what we're recognizing. So I really want the young people, we have to claim the victories that our young people bring forth. And these are victories that they have brought forth.
That's right. And it was a young person, I might point out, that actually recorded the situation. So we wanted to point that out as well. A young lady, 17-year-old, with social anxiety, who actually filmed the video that is going viral around the world. So yeah, that is another young person. It is young people that we owe the debt of gratitude to. So you're right, Attorney Davis.
Well, I want to thank you, Janiyah and Messiah, both for coming on here at Rolling Out News. Continue to make us proud. Definitely you're with counsel, and I think mental health counseling, I'm sure Attorney Davis will help you. There's no shame in the idea, but trauma is real.
Yeah. Post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. So we thank you. Continue to make us proud, and take care of yourselves. We want to appreciate you for coming on Rolling Out News Report. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brother Steve.
Thank you, Brother Steve. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate your everything you have done and what you mean to this city and this country as an entrepreneur who had a vision that allows us to have a platform like this. This is something that is truly inspiring. I've been a long admirer of yours, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to join in this way and look forward to further collaboration. So thank you so much, brother. And
thank you so much, Attorney Davis. I appreciate it. It is what Atlanta means to me. So that is the reason I came. I believe in, and we are a stronger community together than we are apart. So I believe that 100. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to thank you also, Brother Steve, for having me. And I want to thank the other panelists for everything that you're doing to make the world a better place. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
And I agree with everything everybody said. Definitely thank you. And also, just want to reiterate, file the complaints, contact your lawyers. ACRB is acrbgov.org, 404-865-8622. We have to keep the pressure on. Even when the protests are over, we have to keep the pressure on every day.
Thanks, everybody. We've got Imani Barnes, Imani and her son. You are also the spirited future for those who can hang out. If not, we understand. Janiyah, Messiah, much love. Continue to make us proud, and we'll see you soon at Rolling Out. I love what you guys are doing. I really do. I'm very, 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 very proud of you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. For you are so special. Thank you so much. Hey, man.
Thanks.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Dr. Stevens?
Yes, so we have a special show tonight. We're going to be talking to Imani and her son. I came to know Imani. She was actually one of my graduate students at one of the universities that I teach at. She just graduated with her master's in public health this May.
Congratulations. We need more of you, that's for sure.
And she has kind of taken on the activist role, and it's very liberating to be able to teach someone and to actually be able to stand next to them in an activism way for the community, and just to know that that I had that type of impact on her as a professor, to get out in the community and make a difference. And so this past Thursday, she was one of the many that ventured out downtown to protest, peacefully protest, I may add. And things kind of went left, and she decided to take her son with her. And so I'll let them share their story.
Share your story with us here at the Rolling Out News Report.
Yes, this is my son Malachi Barnes, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Malachi Barnes. I wrote an essay 2 days ago for this Zoom call, and I'm gonna read this.
You gotta talk a little louder so I can hear you.
Because Malachi was at the protest as well.
So I took my son to the protest on Friday, and at first it started off as peaceful, and then for some reason everybody began to run, and so we ran too, and he's gonna express his experience. So read it loud, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Malachi Barnes. I'm 9 years old, and here's the experience of my first protest.
Talk up louder.
What I experienced was at first a protest, but at a point it transitioned into a riot. I was surprised and so very scared. Honestly, I thought I was going to get hurt.
Talk up, though.
This was only my first protest. If that was only the first one, I wonder what is next. Out loud, I said, I want to go home. I felt terrified to be there and also overwhelmed by all the people around me. While running in the crowd, I witnessed the armor held by the police officers. Hyperventilating, my mom calmed me down by taking me to talk to the police. They reassured that they were here to protect and serve. My first protest was to end police brutality against blacks because it was unfair that people get killed because of their race. In my perspective, I feel infuriated to know blacks have to wonder if they're next if they're walking around police. In conclusion, one day life will be fair.
That was it. Good job.
Awesome.
So he wrote that on his own. I did not help him. Those are his feelings. I hope everybody heard that. But I took him up to two officers that I saw that were heavily armored to ask them if they can calm him down. And they actually talked to him and calmed him down and told them that they're here to protect and serve. So I appreciated those officers.
So were the officers black or white?
The officers were Caucasian. They were white and very humble. And I really appreciate them because they talked to him. How did you feel when the cops talked to you?
Better.
Talk up.
I felt better, but I was calm.
So that made you calm talking to the officers?
In a way.
In a way. So what would happen if you had to face an officer again? Like, so would you be calm then, or do you still have some level of fear?
By again, do you mean at this age or
in general or at your age? Like if you went out in the street and some officers walked up to you, how would you feel?
Scared.
Scared. Why would you feel scared?
Now.
She said, why would you feel
scared?
Why
would you feel scared? Yeah.
Because of what's happening.
Because of what's happening. And because of what's happening, like, what do you want to do in the future? So how do you think you can make a difference now?
By continuing to protest and someday meeting activists and helping them in their work.
So although you felt scared when you were running away and you say you were hyperventilating, so would you do it again?
No.
No?
You wouldn't go out again if it was peaceful?
No.
Okay.
Not if I knew that at any moment it could happen again.
You have to talk up, baby.
Not if I knew that at any moment it could just backfire at any moment. I wouldn't.
So what would you tell other kids your age about how you're feeling and what you felt while you were there protesting? That was your first protest. There are some adults that have never protested. So what would you tell your friends?
I would tell them exactly what I told you.
And what's that?
I would tell them I was terrified and I was.
Would you encourage them to protest?
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no?
I wouldn't want them to get hurt, but I would want them to help.
So you wouldn't want them to get hurt, but you would want them to help. So that's a very powerful statement. So what are some other ways that you think kids can help during a protest without actually being there?
I think they could make signs for the people that are protesting, or
Right.
Posting motivational words or speeches online.
Okay. Online. Okay. So Mom, what was going through your mind when you have your son, you're peacefully protesting and things are going south? So what was going through your mind at the moment? Did you regret bringing him down for that experience, or, did you think something was going to happen? So what was going through your mind?
Well, taking him out there, your head is on swivel. You're on high alert already. So I'm looking at all the different type of people around me. You're worried about his mask being on his face. It was stressful, but at the same time, I wanted him to have an experience that he would remember, and I wanted to put what's happening on TV in real life for him, so he can better understand it. What was going through my mind when people start running, run with him, like as close as me as I could. I was holding him and making sure he was right there. We had signs in our hand. We threw the signs and start running away from where everybody else was running. That was my first thought. Flight response. That's what he just said. So I was flighting away. I was running away. But once we got away and we noticed that it really wasn't anything going on, we calmed down. I calmed him down, and I had the cops calm him down. So the experience was worth it for me, for him. He was allowed to meet white cops that actually protected and served him. So it was a different message than what's being portrayed on TV. And he was allowed to see it firsthand. And I believe this is something that you will never forget. Is that true? So I don't feel he'll ever forget it, but I have him by my side with everything that I'm doing, so he's able to experience it and hopefully make a change when he grows up.
And so as far as protesting, was this your first protest, or?
It actually was my first protest. I have been one of those people that have watched it on TV, but this time it's just, it's so much going on. I felt I had to go out there and take a stand, and I just feel like we all have to take a stand right now, whether it's protesting or posting or calling the city or calling the courthouse or calling your commissioner or whatever. I feel like we all need to do something to make a change, because if we just take this as I heard on the news last night, they said this is something that we need to stick to, not just for this week, so we have to stick to it. Whether if we're not out there protesting, we still have to try to make a way to make a change, whether it be get our people in office or spread things online, but we have to make a change. Like, we have to stay adamant about this. Like, we have to stand tall about this. We cannot quit this time. And if I have to involve my 9-year-old so he can carry on the message, then that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. So tell us about your nonprofit and the work that you're currently doing with teens, and how the protest and the pandemic has affected those teens that you work with on a consistent basis.
My organization is called I Can Become Anything, and I named it I Can Become Anything because I feel if we lead our youth and tell our youth and inspire our youth to that, and tell them that they can become anything and allow them to believe that they can become anything that they put their minds to, then they can achieve it. So believe it and achieve it. I started my organization so I can inspire our youth. I'm noticing a lack of inspiration with our youth, with our teenagers, not wanting to get involved in anything. staying in the house, online. So how can we change that? How can we get our teens and our youth world ready, ready for real life? And so that's what my organization does. I have resume classes, conflict management classes. We have financial classes, mock interviews, everything that we need to do to get our youth ready to enter the world that they're not learning in school. So that's what my organization does. As far as the pandemic and all of the current events that's going on, I feel like our youth are silent. And so I'm trying to give them a voice right now. How do they feel? School was stopped abruptly. A lot of youth and teens do not want to go to school already, but when they are told that they can't go to school, then they're like, I want to go to school. So how does that affect our youth? They're not speaking about it. Have we heard how they feel about that? How's it affecting their grades? How's it affecting their ambition to continue in school? Graduating seniors, how do they feel about not graduating? I was supposed to walk across the stage as well for my master's, and I felt like the day I started school, I put a sign on my wall at my desk that spring 2020, because that's what I was looking forward to. And it's here, and I did not get to walk, and it was deflating. And so I've already experienced graduation. So I took this one and I said, okay, I'll take this and I'll go with it. But for those who are experiencing their high school graduation, which is major, and they can't have it, can you imagine how they feel? And so I'm giving the youth a platform to express that, how they feel, and get those feelings out, because they could keep those feelings in and become angry or enraged, or we just want to give our youth a voice. So that's what my organization does.
Yes, absolutely. Because right now studies are showing that the group most affected by this pandemic are youth, are teens, and they will be most affected. They will have PTSD. Can y'all imagine? So and it's a result of not being able to socialize, having to be at home, and not really truly understanding what a pandemic is. And so there has been an increase in mental health, pretty much usage for physicians for youth and for teens, for that very reason. And so we have to ask ourselves, so what does that look like in the future when you have a whole generation of students with PTSD? So how would that be channeled?
Right.
Would they have the desire to protest?
I'm having a teen forum tomorrow night, and it's on Zoom, and it's to give our youth a voice, and we want to hear what they have to say. So it's pretty much for the teens, and we're asking them questions. We're just going to let them go and let them talk, express themselves, tell us how they feel about not graduating, about school being out. How do they feel about the protests? How do they feel about the current events with police brutality? So it's supposed to be very well attended. So we're trying to get the youth involved, younger minds. They might have solutions that we have never thought about. You know what I'm saying? They live in a whole different time. They have a whole different mind frame, a technological mind frame. There could be solutions that you'd be like, oh, okay. So I'm giving the youth a voice tomorrow to allow them to pitch us solutions that we can take to the courthouse, or we can take to our politicians. So that's tomorrow at 7 p.m. But I think it's needed. And I think more people need to have forums for these youth to express themselves. You never know, it might lower the violence, teen violence, or anything, just to have them express themselves. So
well, I just want to say thanks so much, Imani.
Thank you.
Continue to you. Here you go, man. Thanks to you. I don't want you to think that your feelings of fear are not real and validated.
You hear that?
I want you to always keep your spidey sense on, so you know how to really think about whether you need to move forward, or your mind or things your mom has said are playing in your mind. So you're not alone in having some fear and concern with police. and adults just in general. I mean, this is a moment of challenge for all of us to trust who we see. Because just because a person puts on a uniform doesn't mean that it's real. And we've seen that, absolutely. So congratulations on graduating. That is wonderful. We're so proud of you. We got 4 minutes to close it out. So I'm going to get a little bit from you. King James, if you'll give us a minute as we wrap up, message to the people from the Rolling Out Report, because there are new things going on every minute. We're making some progress, y'all. So don't stop. We are really making some progress.
Yes, and I want to thank you for both of you for appearing on Rolling Out News. And I thought that you brought up an interesting point, Imani, in terms of this is also, I mean, we're in the midst of a pandemic and an epidemic of police brutality and injustice, and a pandemic in terms of this coronavirus, which is unprecedented. And so, but in the midst of that, we are on the precipice of an exciting frontier in terms of technological advances and how we leverage the power of technology to help young people be the next frontier in terms of, seeking justice. So I'm very excited for the next generation, because they're going to, we have to help them figure out how to leverage the power of technology in terms of using that to get justice and equality in America and get further along than our generation, which we come further along than the last generation. So I'm excited about these times, even though we're in the midst of such turmoil.
Dr. Stevens, we've got 2 minutes. So.
Well, yes. I have gotten so many calls and messages just about youth and teens in general, and just how they are coping during this time. And a lot of it has been from teens themselves, because they were like, okay, I've registered to vote, now what? So I think this epidemic of police brutality has brought on like a whole other realm of thinking for our youth and our teens, and it goes beyond just voting. Like, what can I do next? Because I know Imani is trying to figure out how to run for office. She mentioned that.
I'm trying to figure out how to run for office. Yes, I am.
So, these are the things that we need to start instilling in our youth now. Like, how do you run for office? Like, what does that look like? Once you register to vote, how do you choose a candidate? And what do you look for in a candidate? And so I think that's important moving forward at this point, particularly when it comes to preventing future epidemics of police brutality, not just in Minneapolis, but in cities abroad.
Well, Matthew from Facebook says, young man, you're going to have a bright future because your name means messenger of an angel. So it's a bright future. I'm sure you've been told that before, but know that we believe it. Claim it. You will grow up to be a strong, smart, and dynamic young man by participating. I like that you had some solutions and making signs. And for everybody out there who's watching, make your signs, bail people out.
Right. Yes.
Know that there are things that you can do even if you can't be at the march. But whatever you do, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't let this moment pass you by that you could have and you chose not to, because everything will be documented in this moment. And people are going to ask you, what did you do during the pandemic to make it better for our community? How did you march and give light to those?
Rosie.
Oh, did he just get knocked out?
Who did?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
All right.
Well,
thank you, everybody.
well, excuse me, but thank you. Yes, thank you for everyone for attending Rolling Out News. Dr. Stevens, Imani Barnes, and your son. Thank you so much.
We lost you.
Yeah, we lost you for a minute, but we got you back.
I talked for about 250 minutes and from another dimension. But no, I'm really excited. I just don't want anybody at this moment during the pandemic to not be represented and not be counted. Do not stand on the sidelines.
Absolutely.
Make sure that the community can see, hear, and feel you, because there's so many on the front line making a difference like these two here. So thanks for coming to Rolling Out News. We really appreciate you. It is phenomenal. We want you guys to know that you're making a difference in the community, that this is everything, that the community counts on you. Wouldn't you say that, T?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Don't you
Absolutely.
say a lot?
Everybody, if you want to join the Zoom teen forum tomorrow, if you want to watch and see what the kids have to say, you can go on I Can Become Anything on Facebook or icanbecomeanything.com and get the link to the Zoom. I want everybody to participate. Let's see what the
Okay.
Yes.
Wi-Fi is kicking us out, boy. I tell you.
I think Wi-Fi is not, but we've got attorney Chris Stewart from MSP coming on. So we want to make sure that we are covering this MSP new developments, which we are excited about. Chris Stewart, what's happening, man? How are you? You're here with Dr. Kenyatta Stevens, who's an epidemiologist here in the community. I know you know the ATL. I'm here with First King James, but new developments in MSP, Minneapolis.
Lay it on us. Yeah. Lay it on us.
Yeah, exhausted. Wait, I just lost everybody.
You're back.
Yeah, so we literally just left the rally that we did with Stephen Jackson and with the family out at the site after it was announced today that the 3 other officers were arrested and that the direct murderer, his charges were upgraded, which was a great thing. We're just beat. I mean, we've been sleeping 3 hours a night. And we've got 6 more interviews after this one.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time.
Oh yeah, man. It's just
news report.
It's important. I mean, it's like I just told them out there. We typically, you know, African Americans, we get justice in drizzles instead of a thunderstorm, unlike everybody else. So it's just crazy. We have to fight this hard just to get 3 dudes who clearly participated in a murder arrested.
You know, we believe in justice for all. Obviously, you've been a recipient of Rolling Out's Justice for All. But when you saw that young sister in the car in Atlanta, how did you feel? And what did you know?
You know, I actually didn't watch it fully until she called and until her family called, because I don't just have the case up here with Georgia going on. I also represent Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. So I've been running circles. So I had heard something about it, and, you know, I saw people posting it on Instagram, but I never really watched it because I was like, I know if I watch that thing, I'm going to get ticked off. And if it's in my city, I'm going to get involved. So I really didn't watch it until the family called. Then I really sat down and watched it. And then I was like, oh, it's on now. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen because they're my niece's age. You know, my nieces and my nephew's age. So, yeah, that wasn't going to end well.
Well, let me ask you, Attorney Stewart, but for those who still haven't learned all of the things that transpired today, about the ramifications of the upgrade and charge, what that means, and then what the others have been charged with specifically, and what that means for them, and what everyone is potentially looking at, and what this means for in terms of the future of citizen policing.
You know, that's the thing. And, you know, I've handled a whole bunch of these, the ones that are like hot for a while, and people are talking about Alton Sterling and marching, and, you know, then people move on. And Walter Scott, I just thought that was going to change the world, and it changed the world for like 2 months, and then people went back to their lives. This one is different. This one's different. This one is different. Like, people are caring about this one that typically don't care. And, I think that we started to run into the standard situation we face where there's a case of excessive force, there's an attempted basically cover up. The district attorney doesn't want to do anything and lets it just sit or under charges if he even is forced to charge. So the 3rd degree murder was silly. The other guys were probably going to get away until the whole world woke up and they were like, no.
Well,
and so they got charged with, I'm sorry. They got aiding and abetting the crime, which was the murder. He had 3rd degree murder, moved to 2nd. I mean, all of them can face 40 years plus.
Okay.
So
okay.
even aiding and abetting, this is what I tell my nephews all the time. If you're hanging with one of your little wild friends and he's about to go do a drive-by or do something crazy or pull out a gun and he pulls that trigger and shoots someone, even though you're in the passenger seat or in the back seat, you're going to jail for murder too. What? I didn't do it though. Yeah, you were in the car. You participated in it. You didn't get out the car. You knew he was going to do something. So they got aiding and abetting in that murder. And they took part in it, even though they may say, I wasn't on his neck. You were on him. You didn't stop him. And that's my problem with those officers is their defense is going to be, we had nothing to do with it. We didn't know that he was in that serious of a condition. We should get off. But clearly he was screaming for his life and they knew he wasn't struggling because he was handcuffed already in the position that they wanted him to be in. So, we'll see how the trial goes.
The public is screaming at them, you're hurting him.
Yeah, their defense, they're just going to argue, oh, people always scream when we're arresting somebody. We can't just take the word of people screaming at us. I'm telling you, it's going to be the most ridiculous trial attempt to cover themselves ever. And
that's why I'm glad that you're here, so that you can explain to our audience, play the devil's advocate. Here's what the defense is going to say. Here's what they're going to say about his background, about George Floyd's background. They're definitely going to bring that up. Here's what he allegedly had in his system. Here's where he allegedly fought back, even though he didn't fight back. He was just fighting to breathe. So I'm glad that you're here to explain to the people who, like me, are legal neophytes. We don't really know the law like you do, and you're able to explain how they're going to try to push back at their own.
It's going to be everything you see. People may not catch it in the news because the story will run for a couple of days in Atlanta, but the Desmond Merrill case up in Henry County, where the NFL player who was handcuffed got slammed on his neck. That's one of my cases. And in the police report, you can already see them defending the upcoming, trial if they ever got in trouble. They described him as strong as an ox and said he was so strong he was bending the handcuffs. That's why they had to slam him on his head. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But why they're doing that is so that they can defend themselves if anybody ever caught them. I mean, it's the same thing they're going to say here is, look at his body and his physique. He was such a strong guy. We had to use such force. Watch. That's going to be one of the defenses. And all they got to do is get one juror. So that's why I told people today at the rally, it's not over. Y'all can't just move on to the next situation. You got to ride this case out, until the trial.
Well, we see this because now we still don't have justice in Louisville.
Yeah.
I mean, that young sister never woke up. And they still don't get why the people are protesting, but why aren't those charges coming any faster?
I don't understand that situation. I mean, that one is insane. But like I said, a lot of it is based on the laws, and that's why we've been pushing so hard, not just to get the cops arrested, but for policy changes and law changes, because cops are protected by immunity, and they're also protected by a philosophy of what a reasonable officer thought, or the situation that he perceived himself in. Did he think his life was in danger? Did he have reasonable suspicion that the person was armed, or whatever it may be? So their defense and what they're going to say is, well, we thought we had the right address. We kicked in the door or whatever. started firing because the person, I saw a gun, and then, you know, that's going to be the argument. And then they'll say, oh, we got shot at. But, you know, it seems like, well, they were in the wrong house. It seems like that's enough just to hold someone accountable, but it's not, because they're going to come up with ways to excuse themselves. Like, we got sent the wrong address. So it's not, you know, murder per se. It was an error by somebody. So it's too many loopholes in policing. So we just want stricter regulations, stricter policies, and to get rid of some of these ridiculous protections that they have.
I see, and then you know, all of these cases are inextricably intertwined with one another, including the case in New York, where a lot of people are calling for the woman who called the police on the bird watcher. I've never seen a threatening bird watcher. She should be, well, she's already been terminated. She says her life is ruined, but people are calling for her to be prosecuted for filing a false police report. I didn't know if you had you could weigh on that very briefly in that case as well.
That'll stop all these people where we make those memes like, you know,
oh, barbecue
Park, yeah, barbecue Beck, like that'll stop all that, because you won't have the privilege that you think you have to just call the police on somebody because they're Black, because then they can call the police on you and say, well, this is a false report, here's the video, and you get arrested. So I fully support that bill of making false accusations, because it's used against African Americans constantly. And then that leads to situations like this.
Yes, yes. And if you don't mind, if you could talk about where we are, and you were talking about you are handling or part of the team that's handling the Ahmaud Arbery case that took 2 months to even get charges, 2 months and some change before charges were even brought against, you know, but against the people who took his life. Where we are in that case, very briefly, sir.
Yeah, the 3 arrests have been made. You know, evidentiary hearings, bond hearings and stuff coming up, but that case is just the perfect example of probably what happens all the time, where unjust, you know, murder happens and relationships try and start protecting each other. The district attorneys down there were totally corrupt in their handling of the case, and this case never would have been heard of if it was up to those district attorneys. And now it's come out to the world that they all have relationships, and, you know, this son worked there and this person worked there, and, you know, they're all friends basically. And the case never would have been heard of, and they would have just not given a care. And it probably happens all the time in areas where power is controlled by the same little groups.
You know, we find ourselves in the midst of a pandemic. You know, Dr. Stevens, even when you think about Attorney Stewart is on the front line during the pandemic. This is a very frightening moment for all of us. I'm concerned. What do you think?
As you should be, and anybody that's on the front line should definitely be taking the proper precautions as far as like frequent hand washing while you're out and about. You're touching different people, you're going to different places, you're touching different doorknobs, and, you know, hopefully you're wearing your mask. And okay. And definitely social distancing, which I don't know how you're able to do that. Like if you're out, you're interviewing your crowd. So that's going to be difficult. But I mean, I just kind of want you to think about to really prevent the spread of the virus, 75% of the crowd has to have on masks. So that's 3 out of 4 people. So if you find yourself in a group, you need to, you know, like kind of clock that. Like,
too late, I'm toast. I'm just, you're gonna have to come up with a cure quick, because I'm just done.
No, you just need to make sure you're tested. You're gonna have to get tested a few times. But yeah, it's definitely real. People that have been protesting are already turning up positive.
Yeah, so that's the bad part, because the social distancing part went out the window at the protests I've been to up here. You know, you walk it up and see the crowds, and the crowds are on top of each other. And so it's sad, because African Americans are so, you know, susceptible to it, and 70% of the crowd is African Americans. So I'm also curious to see how that's going to turn out, because before law, I used to work for the EPA and the CDC. And I've been in situations where, you know, I was on a response team where we went to a place that had suffered contamination from a chemical, and people had the craziest diseases and cancers and stuff from a leak from a chemical that had been buried in the ground for 40 years and started seeping. And it wiped out towns. So it's going to be scary to see this, because people were on top of each other, literally.
And that's why, Dr. Stevens, I wanted to briefly touch upon the fact that there are medical connoisseurs out there who are predicting that there might be a second wave that comes much quicker. They were predicting a second wave in the winter, but now they're saying it might come in the summer. And in a few weeks, we might see the results of these mass demonstrations across the country, this insurrection across the country. And I want, and I want you to,
there's not going to be a summer. So that's basically the sentiment.
Don't you say that, Doc. Don't you say that.
No, seriously. Just looking at, I've been crunching numbers and looking at algorithms. Just here in Georgia alone, like we've had 200 hospitalizations just since Monday. And 21 ICU admissions. The ICU admissions is ventilators.
Oh my God.
So that's just from Monday to Tuesday.
Monday to Tuesday, 200.
A chance to look at today's numbers.
Wow.
So, and then the other thing, Georgia has gone from updating numbers from 3 times a day to once a day at like 3 o'clock. So I'm having to like reach out to other sources just to get updated data. And then that data sometimes can have a delay of up to 10 days. So that's why I was saying we probably won't have a summer, because when you just start to see the effects of the lack of social distancing, it's going to be massive.
Oh, it's going to be bad, because I can tell I've been to 2 of the marches down here, maybe 3, and it was thousands and thousands of people. And, you know, the catch with especially Black people, it's so hard for us not to dap each other up or hug each other. Or so people have become so comfortable, especially it's so emotional up here and in every city, rallying, and, you know, and it looked like when we used to hang out. You know, people dapping each other up, and, you know, some people had masks, a lot of people didn't. It could be rough.
It's hard to subjugate, you know, our innate, the way we were made, the way God made us. We were made to be interdependent people, not independent people. We were made for human touch and interaction. That's our instinct. And so we have to guard against that and be safer, and basically practice the things that Dr. Stevens has, you know, regurgitated over and over again. These things do save lives, like washing your hands. Just washing your hands with soap and water, hot water, saves lives. Just wearing the mask can help save lives. So we have to continue to listen to Dr. Stevens. But at the same time, we need people like you on the front lines to handle and do what you do, because we need justice.
Well, I got to run, but Doc, you come up with that cure so I can stay on that front line.
That's right.
So
I'll be back. We appreciate all that you do.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And, it's cool. My payment is this cure that she's about to come up with tonight.
All right.
So mail it up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mail it up here to Minneapolis.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate you.
All right, y'all. Take care.
All right.
So we closed out. You heard him. I think the most people hadn't heard you when you said, "Don't touch your face."
Yeah, I have been watching so many clips on social media and on the news where people are like hugging and kissing strangers, just to console each other, and I cringe. Like I'm like, no, don't do that, because this is about to be very wild. The hospitals are about to be inundated again, and they've already made layoffs. So how does that work? And when you think about the number of deaths from nursing homes And a lot of nursing homes are having to close down because of the lawsuits from injured patients because of lack of care with COVID-19. So where are those patients gonna go? And I have a friend that works at a hospital, and so some of the nursing homes that are basically having to close their doors are basically dropping the patients off at the hospital.
Whoa.
So people don't even know what's about to come. People, they're about to be blindsided.
I was just having a conversation with a colleague, and I said, I have been in some remote villages in Africa where they have had civil unrest, and I have not seen anything to the level that I've seen here. So even being in a country going through a civil war and fighting an epidemic is smaller than a pandemic. And so you have a pandemic, and then you have civil unrest. And it's on a larger scale. So it's nothing that I could have ever imagined in my lifetime.
Do we have time? Yeah. Do we have time for her to say it one more time, what you need to do every time? Well, like such an entertainer says, one more again, what we need to do to save our lives, just basic things, common sense things that we need to practice on a, not just a daily basis, all day, every day.
All day, every day, definitely hand washing. I think the message of hand washing has gotten lost somehow in the melee of everything that's happening. And so I'm seeing people not washing their hands. They're out and about. They're grabbing waters from strangers. They're like getting food from the street from people feeding protesters. So when you think about a chain of command, as if you will, you don't know if these people, they have good intentions, but they could actually be helping to unknowingly spread the virus. So hand washing, not touching your face. Definitely, I've been telling people you can't like dap people up. You can do elbow to elbow, and still try to keep your 6 feet, if not more. If someone is yelling or screaming, don't walk directly in front of them, particularly because at that point they would be considered a super spreader, and you're just pretty much walking into the line of fire, so to speak. Definitely gloves, not so much, because gloves, if not worn properly, like if you're in a crowd and you have on gloves and you can touch several people and you're just spreading. So you're
cross-pollination, yes.
Yeah, you're unknowingly spreading the disease. So the biggest thing for those protesters out there is hand washing. If you can get some hand sanitizer, I know there's been a shortage. So and definitely be OCD with it. Like, every block, pull out your hand sanitizer.
What about rubbing alcohol?
You can, as long as it's at least 70%, you can use that, but it's not a replacement for hand washing. And I know that they have, there's a nonprofit group that actually put up hand washing stations for the homeless. But a lot of these cities have yet to have those. So you have these people that are marching all day without washing their hands. And they're eating. And they're yes. And so, and I know the social distancing is hard, but if subconsciously, if you just try as best as you can to stay away from, try to keep. Are you? I was like, you're okay. So yeah, so
I'm practicing what you're preaching. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and don't forget 20 seconds. So if you sing "Happy Birthday" twice to yourself, you pretty much covered your 20 seconds. Yeah, but the social distancing part is really the thing that's gonna hurt us, and that is hurting us, because you have people piled into these small areas. And right now I think it's 30% of the population is asymptomatic. So keep that in mind. So you don't even know. So they're unknowingly spreading the virus that way too, just from yelling and screaming in unison, or just in support of the protests that are happening. So,
and I think that one of the things I would like you to point out is that how singing in the choir, preaching, and rallies where people are yelling and screaming, that your mouth becomes almost like an aerosol can. So it's not just is not just breathing when your mouth becomes like a lethal projectile. Like,
absolutely. So definitely, and that's some of the things I've been talking to some churches about, how to properly reopen, and definitely no choirs. Singers are super spreaders because they sing from their diaphragm. So you're actually forcefully expelling particles and particulates and, and quite possibly the virus into the air. When you're yelling and screaming forcibly, you're forcing those particles out of your diaphragm and from deep within your body into the space surrounding you.
And it travels further too.
It travels further, yes. Mm-hmm. And then the misconception is the virus only goes forward when people are expelling it from their body, and it doesn't. It goes into the air around you. So that's why you have to keep the 6 feet on every side. Not just in front of you, but left, right, and behind you, because the particles disperse into the air. So if you have a group of 20 people all yelling, no justice, no peace, the particles are everywhere and they're lingering. And then you get someone, and then they're walking and they're screaming, and so the people coming behind them are walking into that cloud. So that was why the suggestion with runners, like, if you're out jogging or you're out running behind someone, not to be behind them. You're less exposed when you're to the side, but when you're like jogging or coughing or whatever, sneezing, it goes out and pretty much over.
No, that's real education right there, because I did not know that it could go to the side, to the left, and go behind. That is something that most people don't envision. They can't fathom that. They can't see that. So that's because most of the stuff that comes out of your mouth is invisible, just like the virus.
Wait, let's think about, we've all had that one person that was had to sneeze while they were eating something, and the particles went everywhere. Everybody got it. So it's the same concept. I'm a visual teacher. So sorry if it grossed anybody out, but that's essentially what happens. Like if you crackers or anything and you cough or sneeze, everybody that's within that range gets a little piece of it.
No, that's not gross. And this time we need to be blunt. We need to be blunt.
That's
if being a little gross will save lives, then I'm down for that.
Yeah. So it's not just in front of you. Everybody around you pretty much gets it.
Well, Barbara Fields says she's a nurse. Hey, Barbara, and we need to continue this. Wash our hands, wear a mask, please. Thanks, Barbara.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks, Barbara. Well, I want to thank you guys for another great Rolling Out news report. Thanks to Dr. Stevens for helping us. I know the young people were happy to see you. The congressperson really loved the training and commitment you have to the community and making a difference in the lives of those you teach and inspiring them to be active in their healthcare and public health pursuit, because I think we don't understand the role and importance of public health. So I hope that all of those who are watching now, if they're interested and they want to get in contact with your company.
SAFE Consulting Group. So that stands for Scientific Analytical Public Health Epidemiology Consulting. You can find me on Instagram, SAFE, SAPHE _consulting, or you can find me on Instagram at Dr._KWSTEP. And my business account and my personal account are linked. And I post daily about, I give stats, I give updates, daily updates on the national numbers and numbers here in Georgia. And if you have questions about the state where you are, a lot of my followers will DM me and say, hey, what's going on in Texas or what's going on in California?
Super. We appreciate all that you do. My co-host, any final words?
No, I just want to thank Dr. Stevens for not only educating us, but edifying us. You're educating us on what we need to do. Mother's the repetition of skills. So the more you repeat it, the more it gets embedded into our spirit, and then we'll start acting accordingly. And then you're edifying us by uplifting us as well simultaneously. So I appreciate you for doing that and helping us to understand that we need to push back against injustice, but we need to do it safely and wisely and with common sense.
Yes.
That's right.
Live to fight another day.
Exactly. That is my
day.
Exactly.
Well, I thank everybody for tuning in to Rolling Out News Report. I'm Munson Steed. This is Dr. Kenyatta Stevens, First King James, Terry Shropshire. We're out. God bless, be safe, and good night.